All right, this is Jimmy Jive, and you're listening to Motor City Rock Talk. Today, my guest is a guitar player that played all through the 80s and more or less got established in a band called Romeo Rock around 1987, I believe it was. My guest today is Don. How did you pronounce your name again? I'm sorry.
Scarcella. Don Scarcella.
Hey, how you doing today, man? Give me a little background on Romeo Rock. And the reason I ask that is I remember seeing you guys back in the day at the Token
Yep.
Studio Lounge, where
Absolutely.
I saw most of the band.
Yep.
And really dug the band. It was kind of a hard rock. Some people have said glam. I never thought you were glam, but, more of a hard rock kind of thing, some original material and all that. But how did you guys come about? Give me a little background.
So here's how it started. So John Evadies and I are best friends since high school. He gets me kicked out of my first band.
And what was that band?
I was in a band. It was a band was called The Invaders. So I had just started playing guitar. I had this crappy Magnum guitar and an amplifier that they made out of like a humidifier, sticking a speaker in it, and it's like little. I mean, I'm not even playing with distortion at this point,
Right.
And we're playing stuff like the King Bees, like My Mistake by the King Bees, So he comes to see us at this gig, and he talks to the drummer, Chris Morganson. Dad used to own this giant studio called Studio A in Detroit.
Right.
And Aretha Franklin recorded there, and
I've heard of it.
Yeah, right in the corner of Ford Road and Beach Dailies. So all of a sudden, I find myself kicked out of the band. And these guys were all good friends of mine. And at that point, I was serious about it, but I wasn't serious about it. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. So
cool.
Yeah. So I've also loved airplanes since I was a little kid.
Awesome.
So John and I somehow become best friends. And I'm talking about he'd come over the house at 8 o'clock on a weekend on a Friday, and we're still in high school. And I'd jump in his Mustang, and we would go driving around Hines Drive listening to Van Halen records.
Cool.
Yeah, and even though he got me kicked out of the band, somehow we just connect. He was a good guy, still is a good guy.
Did you ask him how we got you kicked out of the band? I'm just curious.
Yeah, he talked to Chris Morganson, and he's like, "Hey, look, your rhythm guitar player sucks, and I'm a lead guitar player. And your lead guitar player, his name was Ken Koseski.
Yeah.
He played like a jazz guy. He didn't really play like a rock guy. He was an amazing player, but to play rock music, I think you have to have a little bit of a blues background to play it effectively.
Yes, that's true.
And I think that helps. It's part of the reason why I think Steve Vai is a great guitar player, but I don't love him.
Right.
It's just he's so eclectic and
overly technical.
It's overly technical, At that point in my life, I was really kind of in that transition of I saw The Song Remains the Same when I was 13, and I'm like, I want to be Jimmy Page. So I was super into Jimmy Page, and then I started listening to Van Halen. I'm like, hey, Van Halen shit's pretty cool, and I'm driving around with Evadies. So he's in The Invaders now. I'm kicked out of The Invaders, and I start playing with this guy named John Mazzola. Once Evadies realizes that John Mazzola is a better drummer than Chris Morganson, he gets me kicked out of playing with John Mazzola's band. So now John...
He's a good friend of yours, I take it.
One of my best, yeah.
No, I mean, John, he's kicking you, getting you kicked out of all these bands. You guys are best friends. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's what a good friend does.
Yeah, so he was playing with this guy named Lou Martin, graduated from Crestwood Crestwood High School in Dearborn Heights, a couple of years before us, and he was Lou was friends with my cousin Linda, and my cousin Linda's my favorite cousin ever. So I'm going, I go to their band practices. They were playing with this bass player named Todd Smith, and I could tell right away John was a great songwriter. He really was a gifted songwriter, playing that genre of music, that. At the time, it wasn't even 80s rock; it was still late 70s.
Yeah,
So, but he's got he's got distortion pedals. He's playing with distortion. I'm like, I need this distortion pedal thing so I can do this. But I'm still I'm going to be a fighter pilot, so this is not a big deal anyway. But I'm listening to Van Halen. Once he gets me kicked out of that band, I start taking guitar out of the second band, John Mazzola.
Right.
I start taking guitar a little bit more serious. All of a sudden, I'm back in the band, and I'm the rhythm guitar player still with John Mazzola and Evadies and Lou Martin and this guy named Tony Thomas on bass. We're in this band called Shameless, and now we're playing all the high school dances and the high school talent shows. We get a song it was on Wheel. We wrote the song called Shameless, and the music is and the music is. It's like an 80s, but it wasn't the 80s. You know, I'm still playing rhythm guitar. John's playing the solos. And then, so this carries on, you know, throughout high school. We graduate from high school. And, but in 81, I'm still in high school. I go to see the band Van Halen. And it's like, I tell people it was my Beatles on Ed Sullivan moment.
Sure.
I walk into the show, two of my buddies, I see Van Halen, and it's like, it was a Fair Warning tour, which in my opinion was their best tour.
Absolutely.
They were like
Absolutely.
at the peak of what Van Halen was all about. I'd never seen that many lights. I'd never seen that many speakers on stage. And it was an assault to the senses that literally left me with like, I was shell-shocked when I walked in. But what had also happened is there was this, if you ever been to a concert where girls are flashing their tops?
Oh, of course.
This is happening in the row behind. And I'm like 15 years old. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'd never been like a foot
It's
from
a Playboy
naked
experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never been a foot from naked breasts. And I think my brain sort of did this equation. Like that, this Van Halen assault, dude playing the striped guitar under 2,000 lights and 8 million flag system speakers, and like a super cool lead vocalist running around being the coolest dude in the room, equals girls taking their top off. Like I did this quick equation in my head, and I'm like, I think I like
I want to be a part of this. Yes.
Yeah. So I walked into that show going, I'm going to be a fighter pilot. And I walked out of that show, and I think my friend's mom dropped us off. My mom picked us up, and I got in the car, and I'm like, it was like I saw a ghost. My mom, are you all right? And I just looked at her and I went, I want to be a rock star. I mean, that's how quick it happened.
Right.
From that point on, I was playing guitar, and I was like a 3.8. I was a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
My grade point average immediately dropped from 3.8 to 2.8. Yeah, exactly. So my dad's like, what the hell's going on? You know, at that point, I'm like, I'm going to grow my hair. Which, you know, I had I mean, you're in high school, you're an awkward guy. I had braces, you know, I was kind of pudgy. I'm playing guitar now. Like, we got out of school at 1:30. I'd have my homework done by 4. I would play guitar for 2 hours until my dad's like, hey, Johnny, come up and eat. We made some pasta, because like, he's an old Italian guy.
Yeah.
I'd eat for half an hour. I'd run back downstairs, and I would play from like 6:30 to 10. And this happened all throughout high school. So now by the time I'm a senior, I can like play functional guitar solos that kind of sound like Van Halen.
Figure tapping and all that.
Yeah, I mean, the tapping, the whole thing, you know, I learned a bunch of the solo. I learned the Don't Tell Me You Love Me. We played it at a party,
Right.
you know. So then when Abadesian sees me at that point, he's like, well, fuck it, I'll switch to rhythm guitar. And then we continued the Shameless thing on with a different drummer, with a guy named Gary Lee, who played in Halloween for a while.
Right.
And this drummer named Ted Russo. And I'm still like a pudgy guy with a bad bi-level haircut. But you know, now I've got a Marshall. I get my Marshall souped up by Bruce Egnator. That's a whole other. All of a sudden, like, I'm a functional player. And then so Shameless breaks up. Now I go on a diet and I lose like 40 pounds, 35 pounds. Now my hair kind of looks like David Lee Roth meets Bon Jovi. And I'm cliff noting a lot of this because a lot of stuff happens. But Abadesian is now in the band Strut. I'm playing with Steve Fernino, the drummer of Romeo Rock, and this guy named John Arbor in a band called Roulette. But there was already Roulette on the east side besides Roulette. I had no idea. I didn't even go to the bar that much because I don't drink. So, but I am hanging at the bar, which was kind of cool because I kind of looked like Bon Jovi at the time. I had my like long leather coat.
You want to be in touch
like,
with the scene. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, I was like new meat for the chicks, so your love life immediately improved. Yeah, so while he's in Strut and I'm in Roulette, he's writing these songs. And John's dad kind of bought us this recording studio that we had pretty much right when we were out of high school. We had a recording studio. So we have an 8-track reel-to-reel, and we've got a couple of hopped-up Tascam boards that we bought from this guy named Bruce Nazarian. He played in a band called Automatic.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I literally grew up. I'm a much better studio player than I am live. Like, a lot of people get in the studio and they get red light fever. There was no red light fever because it was like a souped-up Marshall in an ISO booth, cranked, and then I would sit behind the studio monitors, and John would set up this mix for me to where it sounded like I was just playing karaoke over backwards. So when you learn to play guitar in a situation like that, you get good really fast because you get immediate feedback on where is my, when I bend a note from a G to an A, I'm a little bit flat. You know, as soon as you hear that, you can correct it immediately. My ability to play guitar accelerated at an astronomical speed from that.
Cool.
And that's kind of when John's like, I'm not going to play guitar anymore. I'm just going to play bass. So we kicked Gary Lee out of the band. We're writing these songs in the studio. I'm playing in Roulette. John's playing in Strut. We're getting the singer from Strut over to sing the original Romeo Rock demos. Some of those songs, singer from Strut, Charlie, the bass player, whatever it is, whatever. I can't remember what the hell it was. Yeah, the Cheap Thrill Look singer, that guy. Cheap Thrill.
Yeah.
He's singing our demo, and he's like, dude, your guitar player is freaking great. He should come and sit in with us in Strut. So now I'm working part-time as a DJ with Steve Fernino. I'm still in Roulette. John is in Strut, and they're calling me on stage to play with Gunner in Strut. And so every time they played with they played the Token, like on a Friday and Saturday. I'm a part-time DJ there on the weekends with Steve Fernino. Call Steve and I on stage, and we would jam with Strut. Pretty cool. So, you know, Gunner didn't allow a ton of people to play hits. So while all this is going on, I'm teaching at Garden City Music. Tom Ingham is also a vocal instructor there. We've got all these songs that we're kind of writing, and I'm like shredding guitar solos on. John leaves Strut, or he got kicked out of Strut. I don't know what happened. I think you know, they were older. I mean, at this point, you know, it's 1987.
Right.
I'm 22 years old. And dude, when you're 22 years old, man, your body is still making more cells than are in your... So I'm playing with Roulette. John's playing with Strut. And I'm like, hey man, there's this Tom Ingham singer guy. He's in Web. To kind of combine the songs that we have in Roulette, songs that I'm shredding on for you. Well, I'll take Steve Fernino, play bass. We'll get Tom Ingham to sing some demos. Tom comes over, and this guy named Ron Perry with some of our demos. I don't know if you know who Ron Perry is. He played in a band called the Nasties.
Yeah.
I played in the Nasties right at the end of the Nasties, right before Roulette. So Ron Perry had left the band. I've jammed with Ron Perry a couple times. Ron moves to Florida, gets in a band called China Sky, and immediately gets a record deal with like Warner Brothers. He was fucking phenomenal. So we needed somebody that could sing some of the demos that Charlie and Ron Perry were singing. And we had a couple singers. We had Art Reed from Art Attack for a while, and then we had Tommy Dime, who played in Tickle Pink for a while. And I'm like, these guys are both good, but we need great. So we get Tom Ingham. So he feels kind of crappy because we're about to steal singer for his uncle band. His uncle, whatever Steve Fernino's uncle, I can't remember what it is, but it's the Weapons drummer. Also a fucking great drummer. Yeah. We start doing these demos, and this guy, there's a guy named Kelly Milionis that's shopping the demos for us. We immediately, with the songs that John wrote most of them, and I was just sort of the stunt guitar hero trying to play like Van Halen meets George Lynch. We shopped some of these songs, Capitol bites on it right out of it. So the first thing that we ever did in Romeo Rock, showcase for Capitol at United Studios in Detroit when United was open. But we ended up not getting signed. So this chick comes in from Capitol, I can't remember what her name was, and you know, our hair's all ratted out, we're playing in United, and they've got, you know, we're sitting behind her Sony console. I think they had a Neve in there at the time. And, you know, and she's sitting behind the monitors and she's watching us. At this point, we've got a rhythm guitar player, which I don't play as well with a rhythm guitar player, but his name was Rob Ludwig, and he could sing his ass off. So our backup vocals were always really good. He had a super high range. Yeah, so we could execute a lot of what we were doing in the studio with Rob. And even though I hated having two guitar players, it kind of worked. But I was always into Van Halen and Led Zeppelin. Stuff sounds a little bit more raw live. Yeah. There's something that I like about the rawness of live. You know, it's like, how's Jimmy Page going to pull these 3 guitar tracks off on the Rain song? Well, he's going to use a double neck. Okay, cool. That's doable. You know, how they going to...
How they going to most of the time.
Yeah.
But it was still cool. Really cool.
Yeah, I think it's great. You know, I'm more of a one guitar player guy, but Romeo Rock is doing great. We get Tom in the band in like 88, and by July of 1989, we're doing an audition for Yamaha and the Yamaha sound. So there's like 4,000 or 5,000 bands that enter around the country, and I'm like, this is like winning the lotto. Like, we're never going to win this thing, right?
It's going to be very tough.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, you know, so we do this. We send the tape in. I think Ingham found it. He's like, hey, we should send the tape into this, you know? And I'm like, oh, great. It's a talent contest, you know, and the winner gets to go play a show at the Aquarius Theater, which is where they did Star Search. You know, and I'm just like, we're going to be in the Ed Sullivan Theater. Or not Ed Sullivan, whatever the guy that was on Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon. Yeah. So all of a sudden, like, you know, 5,000 tapes. All of a sudden, well, hey, they wheeled it down to like top 100. Like, we're in the top 100 now. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And then like a month later, John calls me, and I'm working at Pyramid Guitars now, and I'm in college. And I'm like completely fucking off in college. My grade point average is 3.0. I'm struggling to carry a 3.0 grade point average because I'm just like counting time to like be a rock star. right? So John calls me, I'm at work, and he's like, hey, dude, we're in the top 10 now, and they want to do a show with us in like the end of August. You know, they're going to go see the top 10 bands. These two guys, Tom Trumbo and Bob Stabile, are going to go do this tour, and they're going to look at the top 10 bands, and we're one of them. So we tell it, we're playing the Studio Lounge a lot now. We've got a good following. We're playing the East Side. We're drawn well on the East Side. We're drawn well on the West Side. We're playing Thursday nights at Harpo's and putting 2,000 people in Harpo's on the Thursday 50-cent beer night. So we decided to do this audition at the Studio Lounge on a Sunday afternoon at noon, and there's probably 400 people jammed in there. So we do this audition, and we were always kind of hit and miss, and really it was a lot of it. You know, it was all dependent. You know, monitor systems are always kind of weird. Well, when you've got songs that have like kind of pop metal choruses that need 3-part harmonies, you have to execute them well to sound
right.
Just happened to have one of those nights where like stars aligned. We had a great mix. We were great. We get done playing, and Bob Stabile and Tom Trumbo are fucking blown away. So they're like, hey man, thing is going to happen the beginning of November. You know, we're seeing the top 10 or 12 bands. You'll know something by mid-September.
Okay.
Mid-September, I get a phone call. I'm at work. Abby Deason's like, pack your bags. We're going to California. We're in the top 5. One of the top 5 unsigned hard rock acts in the country. Also, Rob Roy from Detroit was one of the other bands that they came and saw. Great band. I used to go see Rob Roy when Perez was the drummer, and I love those guys. So we do the sound check contest. We end up finishing in second place. A band from Minnesota called Ipso Facto wins. They were great, but they were tight with Prince, so they had some juice in the industry. So we come back to Detroit, and this is where I'm starting to go, hey, we need to go to California. Like, we're already the biggest fish in the Detroit pond, you know, along with like Seduce. It's kind of on the backside at that point. But like, we're like this up and coming Detroit band. All of a sudden they're playing No One Like You on the radio, the Uptown Downtown song on the radio. So, and this is, you know, now I met this chick in California, and she's like, hey, you need to come out to California with your band. And my cousin's out there, and my cousin Greg, when we actually got out to California for the sound check contest, we're having a party, and, you know, they got us 5 hotel rooms, you know, and they're driving us, we got a limo, so we're driving around.
Total debauchery.
They gave us a bunch of money to spend in California. You know, the sound check for the sound check contest is the day before the show. As soon as I got out there, my cousin Linda and my cousin Greg are out there. And my cousin Linda, he pulls me out on the balcony of the hotel, and he's like, hey, listen, Don, when I met you, you were this pudgy, bad, permanent-haired nerd. And now you look like Bon Jovi and play like Van Halen. Through this band, you need to move to California. Like, if you can't get your band to move out here, you need to move to California. You can live with us in Rancho for free. You'll be in a band here within a month. I don't know if you know who John Lowry is. You know John 5? You know who that is?
Yeah.
So Lowry, I used to hang out at the Ritz, and Lowry used to hang out at the Ritz. Their band Pepperland used to open for us. He told me he was moving to California. He's like, dude, I just think we need to go to California if we really want to do it. And I did. And he's a freaking phenomenal guitarist.
I know.
But I was not a slouch either. You know what I mean? We all grew up with Van Halen. We were all trying to do that. None of us were as good as Eddie, because Eddie was Eddie. You know what I mean? Set the bar, and that's what everybody was kind of reaching for. You know, and then Yngwie Malmsteen comes out, and Nuno Bettencourt, Steve Vai, and all these other superhero guys. You know, all that stuff is kind of going in. But in the meantime, I'm also listening to a much wider, I'd say after the first soundcheck contest, Steve Fernino and I started really listening to a much wider array of music than I think John was. John was really focused on Motley Crue and Whitesnake and, like, you know, hair metal. And I'm looking at bands like Cheap Trick, and I'm listening to like singer-songwriters. I'm in music school right now. You know, I'm going to Henry Ford, and the only thing that kept me in college was advanced chordal musical theory and analytical musical composition. So I have a lab class, and I'm like learning music, and I'm like, I need to do more than just be the George Lynch stunt guitar player in Romeo Rock. So my brain is already sort of making a right turn, kind of away from like what's happening, you know? So I'm trying to talk John into going to California. John doesn't want to go to California, and I'm like a pretty loyal cat. My girlfriend's like, screw your band, move out here by yourself.
Why did you not want to go to California? Did you want to take a chance?
Because I was too big of a pussy and I was afraid.
No, I mean, why was John not interested in going? I think if John would have went, you would have gone for sure.
Absolutely. And, you know, and I wanted to go to GIT also. You know, I mean, I'd like, you know, sent demo tapes into GIT, and they're like, hey, you're a great player. You know, here's the deal. You can apply for this grant. It'll pay for half the school. You know, you have to figure out someplace to live. I'm like lost torn at this point. My cousin's calling me. She's like, screw your band, dude. You need to come to LA. You can live with us in Rancho. Get a crappy job at Guitar Center. You'll be in a band in a month, and then just band jump until, like, you know,
you hit the mark, yeah.
Until you get a group of guys together that are, and I'll be honest with you, I cannot see the future. I can't really see the fact. Metal, we're sort of on the Titanic. We just don't realize it.
Grunge is about to crush you.
It hasn't hit yet. It's still 1989 and going into 1990. But all of a sudden, like, you can kind of see the trends changing. We're still doing great in 1990. We're selling out the Token Lounge on the Riff Nights. We're selling out the studio on the Riff Nights. We're still putting 2,000 people in Harbos on Thursday night. All of a sudden, it's maybe June, and here comes the second Yamaha Soundcheck contest. We decide we're going to send another tape. At this point, we're working with Tom Trumbo and Bob Stabile. A guy named Doug Buttleman is managing us, and Buttleman had Buttleman Management. We're working with Steve Moyer for Moyer Marie Entertainment in Warner Chapel. So John is trying to get a publishing deal, and I'm like, I don't want a publishing deal. I want a fucking record deal. Like, I saw Van Halen, I want to do that, you know? So John is like, he really, you know, as much as I wanted to, like, be a rock star and tour and stuff, John really didn't want to be a touring guy. He was like kind of a family cat, you know, he was tight with his mom and dad, you know, he's like an Armenian guy, and I'm an Italian guy, dude. Like, he's European. I'm a European family, super tight with our family. So even my dad was like, you're going to go to California? What the fuck, you know, you're going to be this goddamn rock star? You know, I have an earring at this point. I got my ear pierced, and my dad's like, I can't even take you to the old country. You'll come home pregnant, you know? He's like, how am I supposed to, you're supposed to go see your cousins, you know, Lucio and Giovanni and Giuseppe. You'll come home pregnant, you know? So I'm like, yeah. So, but I'm like, hey, Dad, I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I just want long hair. I want to play in a rock. And I'm good at it. At this point, I'm really getting my songwriting chops together. And the stuff that I'm writing, we did some of the stuff that I did in Romeo Rock, but it was a little bit different than the stuff that John was writing. John was really writing kind of like Motley Crue-y kind of sleaze rock songs. Right. And I was like shredding Van Halen solos on them. Not that I'm as good as Van Halen.
No, I understand.
I'm trying to play like a guitar player that's a gifted guitar player, and it was a struggle. I just outworked everybody. But I'm kind of writing stuff like, there's a little bit more pop in my brain, I think. Probably from like Cheap Trick and the Knack. So here we are, it's 1990. We enter the Yamaha Soundcheck contest the second time, and I'm like, there's no way we're going to win this Yamaha Soundcheck contest. All of a sudden, you know, 5,000 bands. All of a sudden, John calls me at work. Hey, man, we're in the top 100 again. Oh, that's kind of cool. A month later, ring, phone rings at work. Don, Pyramid Guitars, how can I help you? Hey, we're in the top 10. They need to see us again. We do another audition at the Studio Lounge. This one is good. Not quite as good as the year before. But now we're playing a couple of new songs. We had a couple of songs that I wrote that were in there. Played the original set, 12 songs. They think we're great. He calls me up like a month later. Hey, we're going to California again. We're in the top 5. So here we go. 2 years in a row, we're one of the top 5 unsigned acts in the country. Now we get to California, and we can see that things are changing. We can just see it. Clear as day. We do the Yamaha Soundcheck contest. In the first year that we were there, we were good, but we weren't great. Second year we were there, we fucking killed. We were phenomenal. So at the end of the contest, so we played a band called Skin Deep played. They were from Atlanta, and the singer from that band, Lejean, is in metal singer. I can't think of the band he was in, but at the time he was in a band called Skin Deep, and he is in Seven Dust. So he's a skinny dude in a band called Skin Deep from Atlanta, and he's kind of like Terrence Trent D'Arby. They have this like kind of rock funk thing going on, kind of like Extreme, sort of.
Yeah.
Their guitar player was absolutely phenomenal. Oh, the year before, 89, Fernino gets Best Drummer in the Soundcheck contest. I get Best Guitar Player in the Soundcheck contest. I end up with a Charvel Jackson endorsement. I think Steve ended up with a Yamaha drum endorsement. Good shit is happening. The second year we go there, we play, Skin Deep plays with Lejean, but there's this band out there called Sick Kitty. Skin Deep singer's got this Terrence Trent D'Arby thing. He's a better frontman than Tommy Ingham. He's a little bit more personable and a little bit more captivating. Still had an amazing voice, because Ingham has an amazing voice. Freaking amazing. So I'm sitting backstage, you know, watching this on the TV, and I'm standing with the guitar player in Skin Deep, who's awesome. And we're both watching, like, Sick Kitty play, and they were so not together that about halfway through the first song, this producer comes on, he's like, cut. He's like, stop. He's like, you guys need to, like, tune up. You're not even in tune. And this stuff is going to be on TV New Year's Eve. So these guys tune up. They restart the song. This is all happening in real time. And we're playing at the Roxy. So the first year it was at the Aquarius Theater. the Ed McMahon Theater.
Uh-huh.
The second year it's at the Roxy. And I remember looking at the other guitar player going, what just happened? Looking at the guitar player in Skin Deep. So they did a second take. So everybody plays 2 songs at the sound check contest on kind of a back line. So, and the guitar player from Skin Deep goes, well, you know what? We may not win this thing. Your band may not win this thing. And he points at the screen and he goes, but those guys definitely are not winning this thing. Guess who wins?
That band.
Yep. This is where I'm like, what the hell is going on?
The business is going on, and the business is ruined the roost.
This is like I could see a little bit of this, but not clear. It still wasn't clear.
You didn't want it to be clear because you were focused on what you were doing and what you knew was good, but unfortunately the business wasn't about that. I understand that.
So now don't forget, I'm in music school now, and I'm like learning more about music and how to put chords together in a much more unique way than Dokken, which is kind of like, you know, Romeo, we were kind of doing that kind of stuff. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So they win the sound check contest. We come back, and we were so bummed from that whole, because I walked off stage and I'm like, we won. And we did.
What would you have won? What was the prize?
So the prize would have been 10 grand. It was a bunch of recordings that Yamaha was going to pay for. And then you'd go to the next step of the contest, which was a concert at the Budokan in Tokyo. So the Yamaha sound check contest, which has since turned into the John Lennon songwriting contest, is still happening.
Right.
It's just, they call it something else now.
Sure.
We finished in second place like both years. So we come back to Detroit, and now the Ted Nugent contest is happening at this point. Now things are like, now the ground, like the world that we perched ourselves on top of, is kind of starting to turn over on our head a little bit. We still can't see it. Fernino could see it. Fernino's like, hey, we need to do more. We need to look more at this like grunge thing. Like he wasn't a Nirvana guy, but he liked Soundgarden.
Less like, spandex and hair and more just down to earth.
Yeah, like a little bit less makeup, in type shit, and like, you know, in John's brain, and like when I heard that stuff, it was so unproduced compared to the stuff that we were doing. It was so raw. Like we were like super highly polished in the studio,
and
man.
That
like,
shit was just garage shit, garage band stuff.
It
was good for what it was, but it was basically garage bands, knew 3 or 4 chords, and just made some noise.
It was a lot different. So the second sound check contest was October of 1990. By February or March of 91, Fernino quits. The drummer quits. The rhythm guitar player quits. We get another drummer. The rhythm guitar player, Rob Ludwig, comes back. We go on for about 3 or 4 more months in Romeo Rock to the end.
Well, that was lead guitarist Don Scarsella from iconic Detroit band Romeo Rock, talking about the ups and downs in the music business in the late 80s, early 90s. Well, this has been Jimmy Jive at Motor City Rock Talk, and as I like to always say, keep rocking.